5 miles, Angel 6.
Roger, that's the only one I've got right there where the pointer is.
Well, welcome back to the show, and thanks for tuning in to another SITREP. I'm your host, Prickly Hedgehog, and as always, I do hope this video finds you well where you're tuning in from today, or regardless of where you're tuning in from today, because we've got a very, very exciting newsletter discussing ED's 2023 and beyond vision for DCS World, and some of the things that they're talking about in this week's newsletter is absolutely fantastic and will be game-changing, presuming, of course, that they're able to implement all of these things. And it's looking pretty good based on what they're describing. So stick around. Here we go. Let's dig into this newsletter and what they have planned for us in 2023 and beyond. We'll start, of course, with the news about the various modules that we should be seeing in 2023. They include, of course, the F-15E by Razbam and the F-4E by FLIR. No surprise there, because both of those aircrafts were slated for the end of 2022 but didn't quite make it. In addition, we are going to see the Kiowa Warrior, the OH-58D. That is by Polychop, and of course the team had quite a few stumbling blocks and impediments to producing the aircraft on schedule due to personal issues and things that were going on with the company there. Not of their own making and not for lack of want. So it's exciting to see them back on track and getting this aircraft up and running. There are many people looking forward to this, and of course helicopters are becoming a huge deal in the game right now. Harking back to the World War II favorite, the F4U-1D Corsair by Magnitude 3 is also slated for 2023, as well as that beautiful looking C-130J Hercules by Airplane Simulation Company. Really looking forward to that, and a lot of people are excited about the multiplayer options available in the game, which continue to expand. We're going to see a new series of Mirage F1 versions by Aegis, and Ugra Media is going to release the Normandy 2 map, which we saw in the video, and that's going to include Paris and London, which is really exciting. And from what screenshots I've seen, it looks pretty cool. We're also going to have the Sinai map by On Red Tac, which I haven't had access to, but Spudknocker has had a little tour, if you like. And there are a few other things as well, which they didn't mention here, so stay tuned. Once I know more, we'll bring you information on that. Don't forget too, there is the 50% off discounts for a couple more days here, and these things include the Mosquito, the Mi-24P Hind, the Viper, the Hornet, and of course the Super Carrier. I picked up the Mi-8 for kicks and giggles just because, helicopters, like I said, are a bit of a thing, and I'm becoming more and more interested in these fascinating aircraft with my experiences with the Black Shark 3 right now. So the nerd in me is really getting into the physics associated with flying helicopters, and particularly that coaxial rotor from the Black Shark 3, which is really fascinating me for whatever reason. I don't know, but it's bitten me. So there you go. So again, don't miss out. There's quite a few sales or savings in the shop right now, so not just the ones that I've mentioned. So do check it out. Pick up something that you may have been interested in or have an inkling. 50% off is a big deal.
Marshall Victor 211's with you, single.
Let's talk about the massive updates that Eagle Dynamics has planned for 2023, and it's looking pretty good. I know there are a lot of naysayers out there about some of this content, but I think you need to pay attention here because this is significant stuff. We'll start with the core engine improvements, and they begin here by telling us about multi-threading. So this has been one of their primary efforts to improve DCS performance, and it is currently in closed beta testing. That's significant news. Initially, 2 threads, graphical and logical, will be implemented, and then once that technology is stable and mature, they plan to expand this number of threads, which is, again, really exciting. Large and complex missions, both single-player and server-based, as well as the upcoming dynamic campaigns, which says here plural, which is interesting. I'm wondering if that's World War II as well as modern, possibly even Cold War. We'll have to wait and see. We'll see the most significant performance enhancements. And I had said recently that the dynamic campaign system that they are implementing is definitely linked to the multi-threading, and many of you picked this up as well, that it was likely needed for dynamic campaigns to actually run in the game. So we'll see how this evolves over the course of 2023. Now, what we also have here is mention of Vulkan API. Remember that API is basically an interface between the software that the company has produced and the interaction it has with hardware. Now, this continues in parallel with the multi-threading effort. Vulkan Renderer is integrated, well, their Vulkan Renderer is integrated with the new render graph that they have produced, and it benefits from multi-threading by using render graphic mechanics of background loading of textures and geometry, rendering objects in parallel, terrain streaming, etc. As a result, many rendering tasks submitted to the graphics card will no longer need to wait for each other and hence will be processed simultaneously. This is massive news. Now, in their endeavor to unify DirectX and Vulkan renderers, they have developed a mod state where both backends produce identical results. So what they have done is they have two fully compatible implementations that run under the same API. That is Vulkan and DirectX. This means that all of their applied graphics modules, the code that renders the skies, the clouds, the models, and the effects, etc., will work the same way on both renderers. To achieve this, they had to ensure that all of their shaders could be converted into Vulkan format, in addition to implementing a shader converter available from within DCS, which allowed the systems to permit and compile any shader on the fly. It is interesting to note they said that the shader conversion has taken an inordinately large amount of time. And remember that shading in the game is one of the biggest hits that you get for performance. And I've seen videos from other YouTubers on this before in terms of getting the right textures, if you like, or the right settings. And often shading is one of the things that causes a reduction in frame rates, especially for mediocre systems or mid-tier systems running the game. It's just not optimized for it. So the main achievement in 2022 is that DCS now works under Vulkan, producing the same visuals as under DirectX. So that's a big thing, because if you produce something that doesn't perform as well, then there's really no point in doing it, right? So this result is fully transparent for their graphics programmers, allowing them to write the same code for both platforms without the need to have separate code paths for Vulkan and DirectX 11 and beyond. Remember that DCS runs under DirectX 11 right now. So the next step is to provide their graphics programmers with the new Vulkan features compared to DirectX 11. These include new types of shaders, such as Shader Model 6 and further, ray tracing, some advanced rendering techniques, such as GPU-driven rendering and similar. So again, this is an interface that will allow the hardware we have to operate much more efficiently with DCS, which is really, really exciting. Now, this came up during the DCS 23 and beyond video with regards to multi-threading and DLSS. And DLSS stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling. And that DLSS 2 is coming to DCS this year, they promise. And DLSS is a family of real-time deep learning image enhancement and upscaling technologies for RTX 20, 30, and 40 series NVIDIA graphics cards. So they've kind of gone or mated themselves up with NVIDIA right here, which is probably a sensible thing to do, and we'll see how it manifests itself. But the goal of this technology is to allow most of the graphics pipeline to run at a lower resolution for increased performance, and then infer a higher resolution image from this that contains the same level of detail as if the image had been rendered at the higher resolution. This allows for higher graphical settings and/or frame rates for a given output resolution depending on user preference. So again, pretty important technology there, which is a way again of boosting your performance. So you're not necessarily running the game in the higher resolution. You can run it in a lower resolution, but it ports it essentially to higher resolutions that you see. And this is really good for video recording and all that kind of stuff as well, to get the best out of the graphic scenery. Now, in addition to DLSS, NVIDIA image scaling will also be available, and NIS is a scaling and sharpening tool with an algorithm that uses a 6-tap filter with 4 directional scaling and adaptive sharpening filters to boost performance. This is best used for non-RTX NVIDIA graphics cards that do not support DLSS. So for those of you with older cards, this will be a huge performance boost for you as well, potentially, again, depending on your particular system. Now, following the completion of DLSS NIS, we will investigate Fidelity FX Super Resolution for AMD GPUs. So you're not out of favor if you run an AMD, and that's exciting as well. Really cool stuff. Let me know what you think about those topics and how this is going to be a major performance boost for DCS World, which really is long overdue and really, really exciting to see. And I want to congratulate the team on the work that they've done thus far and showcased in the game through the recent video.
All aircraft squawk mode 3, code 0400. Time in 30 seconds will be time 18.
Now, they're also talking here, this is big news, a spherical Earth map. So 2022 saw great progress creating the tools and technologies to support a precise spherical Earth map for DCS. Because this map will be based on current day, it will operate independently of the current and future regional maps that allow historic maps such as World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and other scenarios. Spherical Earth efforts will continue in 2023. So don't expect anything on that this year. In other words, we'll have to stay tuned for more information. I don't expect we'll see all that much this year on that unless they have some sort of major breakthrough. Right now we're going to have to guess as to exactly what that means, but I'm interpreting this as you can have your regional historical maps, and then there will be some sort of world map that is ongoing in the background, similar to what we see with Microsoft Flight Simulator, but that is a little bit of a guess. Pretty cool stuff nonetheless, and I can't wait to see more information on that effort because it is huge and has been long asked for among the community in terms of tying things together so that we can fly just about anywhere we want. So that's going to make some interesting mission planning stuff, and there might be some refueling going on in the DCS environment among the community. You're going to have to get your refueling skills up to par if you want to fly long distance here, or you'll be landing in a lot of places or crashing, bailing out, whatever. Anyway, let's move on to weather.
Weather is average. Altimeter is 99 or 7.
Now, building upon the weather enhancements that were introduced with 2.7, they have been further developing weather to include moving clouds and towering cumulus clouds and more sophisticated atmospheric phenomena. New fog and dust storms are being developed that are integral parts of the volumetric cloud system. That's really cool. The old DCS fog is a separate system that is calculated for a flat Earth. It does not consider shadows from the terrain and clouds, so it has limitations. The new fog, however, will be computed for a spherical Earth and takes shadows into account. They also plan to optimize the volumetric clouds and increase their basic quality. A separate and complex project currently in development is the dynamic cloud generator, which will then need to be integrated with the dynamic weather systems of low-high pressure systems and new evolving cloud types. A later task, once the foundation is complete, will be to provide, this is huge, AI line-of-sight blocking, in addition to light direction scattering visibility limitations for AI. That's massive. That's been asked for many, many times, but they're really going all out here. It's not just based on simplicity. It's based on some pretty interesting concepts with regards to weather. And this is why weather is so important. It's not just a pretty feature of the game, which is nice to have, but it actually is a tactical consideration as well, not only for BFM, BVR, and that kind of stuff that many of you are fond of, but also for target issues with regards to whether or not the mission is going to be successful or how you're going to engage with your mission parameters and objectives, because they may not be able to be achieved. Similar experience that we saw with the great story from Casey Campbell, or Killercheck, the A-10 pilot who dived between the clouds to do a strafing run, I believe it was, and she got shot up by ground fire and then had to basically fly her damaged A-10C back to base. And she talked about, not being able to see the ground. There was cloud cover, but her wingman dived into the clouds when there was a gap. She followed quickly afterwards. And so these kinds of considerations are real-world influences that I think are really, really exciting to see in the game. As I said, it is not just for looks and show. It is a tactical problem dealing with weather, and that is really, really cool.
Marshall 610, 2 pass open to us. Affirmative 610,
2.5 to go.
outbound heading 070, contact approach control button 15.
Now, FLIR, they saw significant improvements in 2022 to forward-looking infrared radar systems and how it is modeled in DCS World. In addition to writing the technology needed to create the characteristics of the camera, a great deal of work is being invested into the enhanced thermal signatures of mobile units, map objects, environmental heating and cooling, as well as specific visual effects and artifacts. They will be adding initial thermal signatures, conditions for ground units in the mission editor. So really, really cool there.
2 minutes.
Now, we've discussed this already, but the Dynamic Campaign Engine, or EDDCE, 2022 saw the completion of all major engineering components for that, and in 2023 they continued to develop and test and make improvements to those components, as well as adding new features where they are needed. They are also enhancing the mechanics in the campaign editor to avoid issues that may arise when EDDCE is used for different maps. The next big task include transferring mission data between players and AI pilots and creating a specific graphic user interface. So again, refer back to my prior video on that. It is very, very exciting news, and we'll see how it comes to bear in the game in due course, no doubt. It's not a massive priority for me as a multiplayer kind of dude, but I do see the appeal for solo players, which is going to mean a lot more interactive availability. But there are limitations with these things.
Marshall Fast Eagle 107 commencing state 78.
107, the final bearing now 230, contact approach button 17.
Switching.
Now, Air Traffic Control, ATC, 2022 is focused on the continued development of the supercarrier ATC system. Following its completion, the next focus will be to bring those advancements to airfields. This is certainly no simple task and will require 3 unique ATC systems for Western modern day, Eastern modern day, and World War II. So a complete redesign of the modern day Western ATC system is underway. In parallel, modern day Western radio communications for flight, other flights, AWACS, and tankers are also being revised. And this has come up before in discussions where people, felt it was a little wooden and simplistic. So this is very, very exciting. And I know that Simon Pearson in the past, in an interview with Tim Davies, talked about having to record basically thousands of scripted responses in order to bring this up to speed. So it's a huge, huge task, and I'm excited to see how this also comes about in the game. Human animations, I'm not so concerned about this, but they are starting with the new AH-64D pilots in 2022, and this work will continue into 2023 to include new infantry and more pilots with more lifelike models and animations. Priority pilot models first include the Hornet and the Viper. If that's your thing, then cool, but it doesn't blow me away, but I appreciate the work that they're doing, although I am looking for forward to new infantry units as well as some other models and things that they're doing. Now, speaking of that, deck crew and ground crew, this is something I am interested in more. Starting with the super carrier deck crew, they have continued to develop this feature in 2023. They are now continuing this effort to include startup and taxi to catapult deck crew logic and animations. Following the completion of the deck crew, they plan to use this technology to create airfield ground crew and interactions. And I remember asking this to Wags many years ago about whether we could see that in the game, and the answer was yes. That was something that they were considering and had in mind. So now it's becoming something of a reality. Stay tuned for more on that. I think that's really, really cool just from an immersion point of view.
We're going to be a little early.
Now, speaking of immersion, multiple light sources. 2.8 saw great advancements in world lighting, but their efforts continue. The next big lighting advancement will be the introduction of multiple global light sources, and no longer only the sun and moon. This will allow more realistic night scenes that account for airfield floodlights, city lights, and more. And you can see these initial efforts, if you haven't already, on the Persian Gulf map. If you don't have the Persian Gulf map, I suggest you go out and buy it because it's a pretty darn decent map and it looks really, really cool. Although, in fairness, it will be introduced to the other maps in due course, so it's not the end of the world. But again, a good opportunity to maybe to pick up another map here.
211's up, 5.9.
Voice chat. Now, I don't know much about this because I haven't used it in the air warfare group. When we're flying together, we generally use SRS. So if somebody else has experience with this, perhaps they can update. But this was introduced back in 2019, and the free voice chat integrated into DCS allows VoIP communications based on chat rooms and how you have your aircraft radios configured. 2022 was focused on improving that radio communication system and stable connections, even over a VPN. In 2023, they continue to develop this feature with realistic radio sounds, effects, and plug-and-play audio device compatibility. Cool. Anything that enhances that is obviously a good thing. Now, visual spatial effects. Some of the more notable visual effects tasks include munitions, and this is something you're going to be excited about, with airburst fuses, and napalm. And, I really can't wait for this, Mach shock cone based on airspeed and weather around the aircraft. So cool. Can't wait to see that stuff. Napalm as well. Good morning, Vietnam. Now, virtual reality, VR, of course. A lot of you out there are VR players, and many of you are frustrated with performance hits with some of the updates that we've had. Obviously, the ED team have said you guys are very, very important, and ladies, I should say, and they have heard your concerns regarding performance, and they are continuing to optimize VR performances with DCS. The primary areas of VR performance improvement are, of course, as we've already mentioned, the multi-threading and the Vulkan API systems. So, especially where larger missions are concerned, they're reviewing all of their level of details, world level of details as well. So stay tuned for more info on that. Obviously, I think, the multi-threading should help for you VR folks, because remember that the systems have to render for each eye. That is usually a pretty deep performance hit, especially with a older piece of software that's not designed, was never designed around that particular technology even being available when it was first introduced. So there's some catch up to do there, and that's to be expected. Of course, there's been quite a lot of flutter in the sim community with Falcon 4 BMS now being able to run VR. So there's been a few videos pop up there. How it compares to DCS, I couldn't say because I'm not a VR user. But if somebody has experience in that department, maybe they can throw in a comment or two and see. But again, we're not comparing apples to apples here. The two platforms are quite different. And the graphics in DCS obviously are a lot more salubrious than what Falcon 4 is offering, in fairness. Not that I'm trying to trash Falcon 4. It is a very, very good program, but it has some limitations visually, but it's largely a community-based and funded system. So, all right, I want to get off track here, but let's go back to the newsletter here and AI improvements. They are continuing based on their 2022 work to improve BVR and BFM for the AI jet aircraft. Moving forward, they intend to improve multi-ship BVR and air combat maneuvering tactics and appropriate AI tactics for World War II aircraft. That's going to be very exciting to see. And also ground units, their primary AI tasks include improving pathing and implementing suppression effects for more than just infantry units. So that's really, really cool. And lastly here, to round out the newsletter, while they have updated BFM AI, and it can make a significant difference to how the AI flies, the general flight model will provide improved flight dynamics for AI aircraft that better constrain the aircraft to true to life performance. So yeah, many of you have noticed still that there are some quirky effects with the AI and the way in which they move, but they are aware of that, and so the GFM is a significant improvement to the standard flight model that is based on drag and thrust characteristic trajectories. The SFM can provide a good center of gravity trajectory model, but it relies on reliable source data to tune the overall performance that include the entire flight envelope, sustained and instantaneous turn rate, energy gain, etc. GFM adds additional short period aircraft movement by adding our base solid body, contact models, and aerodynamic movements. This results in more realistic control displacements during maneuvers that provide more human-like appearances. With GFM, the AI will also encounter wake turbulence. So very, very exciting stuff there. And if I recall, too, one of the problems with using their advanced flight model, if you like, for the AI was that it caused a CPU performance hit. So those calculations were restricted to player aircraft only. So again, the Vulkan API and the multi-threading is going to help with that. And again, I think this is a significant update from Eagle Dynamics. Some of the things that they're talking about here are just jaw-dropping. Certainly the multi-threading stuff, the effects like napalm and burst effect weapons, shock cones, those kinds of things are just visual. The weather stuff really blows me away. But just in general, to the improvements to the core engine with multi-threading and Vulkan, it's just going to change the game beyond recognition, I think.
1-1, Jedi, contact you about a final bearing 230.
Roger.
Well, let me know what you think of all of these topics. I do believe that this newsletter signifies some really important stuff going on in DCS World right now, and Eagle Dynamics' intent to improve the core engine of DCS World, which is long overdue, and many of you have expressed that, including myself, and I'm really excited for what they are doing here and what they're trying to achieve. It's no mean achievement too when you look at the detail that they're going into with regards to Vulkan API and the multi-threading stuff. It only bodes well for everybody in the community, including VR users and all of you who have less salubrious systems. There's no reason why this will not show some improvement to your experiences with DCS World, and that's exciting. And that will also make it accessible to a broader number of players who currently may not be getting the best experience out of it just because of the limitations of their particular system. Don't expect it to blow you away if you have a mediocre system, but it might be a lot more playable than if the system isn't implemented as it currently stands. Again, it's exciting stuff. Well, I hope you liked today's video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the video that much, you are free to support the channel through the super thanks button. Obviously, that is really appreciated. It helps the channel chug along and supports the work that we're doing here. Obviously, don't forget to check out my sister channel with the Air Warfare Group and the work that we're doing there as a small team of enthusiasts for military combat and aircraft in the game and DCS World. We'll make that do. Cheers. We'll see you next time on the DCS SITREP.